Welcome to today's explainer. Let's just jump right in. Every single day we rely on the ground beneath our feet, the roads we drive on, and, the signals that guide us through our cities. We expect them to be permanent, right? We expect them to be rock solid. But what happens when the very foundations of our modern world reach their melting point? Today, we're taking a look at a pretty stark reality: Europe's current infrastructure crisis. The continent is experiencing such punishing temperatures right now that the very systems built to keep society moving are, quite frankly, fundamentally breaking down.
Traffic lights and roads are actually melting. Let that sink in for a second. We aren't just talking about a hot summer day where you maybe need to crank the AC a little higher. No, we are talking about the physical degradation of our urban environments. It's a visceral, ground-level fact. The solid materials we completely trust to withstand the elements, the heavy asphalt, the thick industrial plastics, the metals, they are physically transforming. They are literally melting under the sheer intensity of this heat. It's wild.
Which, of course, brings us to the core question here. How is Europe's infrastructure surviving the heat? It's a question that really forces us to zoom out from those melting traffic lights on the corner and look at the macro reality of what the entire continent is struggling with. We build urban environments to conquer nature, right? To give us unparalleled stability. But this extreme heat wave is severely testing those limits. And well, the short answer to our question, it's not surviving well. At all.
Section 1. The punishing heat wave, a continent under stress.
The word punishing is exactly how our source data describes these temperatures, and honestly, it hits the nail on the head. This heat isn't just an inconvenience anymore. It's an active, relentless stress on the physical structures that actually make up Europe. Every street, every intersection, every transit route is under immense pressure. The data states that European infrastructure is currently struggling to survive extreme heat waves. Just think about that specific phrase for a second, struggling to survive. We usually apply those words to living, breathing things, right? To people, to animals, maybe forests caught in a wildfire. Applying it to infrastructure, that tells us something really profound. It tells us that the solid, unmoving environments we implicitly trust to endure are fundamentally failing to cope. It's a systemic failure. This heat is exposing a massive structural vulnerability in the very DNA of Europe's public works.
Moving on to Section 2. When infrastructure melts, visceral failures.
When we look at these specific failures, traffic lights and roads melting, there's just this jarring contrast between expectation and reality. Think about what these materials are literally engineered to do. Traffic lights are built to be incredibly durable, standing out there in all weather conditions to safely direct massive, nonstop flows of heavy vehicles. And roads, they're engineered from dense, compacted asphalt specifically to carry thousands of tons of weight every single day for decades. They are the very definition of durable. Yet, under these punishing heat waves, they are completely losing their structural integrity. When the road you drive your family on turns into a soft, liquid hazard, and the traffic lights that are supposed to guide you start warping and drooping, the basic safety and functionality of society just breaks down.
Which brings us to Section 3. Vulnerabilities over adaptation. The missing solutions.
As someone who loves figuring out how things work, I'm always looking for the fix, right? The solution, the adaptation. But what's truly striking, and frankly kind of alarming about this current analysis of Europe's situation, is what the source material completely leaves out. On one hand, we absolutely know what is happening. The infrastructure is actively struggling to survive, with these extreme visceral failures like roads literally melting. But on the other hand, we have what's missing. The source data provides absolutely zero information on adaptation measures or solutions. None. There are no details on public services bringing in heat-resistant materials. There's no mention of, say, new cooling systems for utilities or emergency policy changes being rushed through to protect these cities. Just nothing. The current data focuses entirely on the failures. And what that means is, right now, this story is exclusively about vulnerability and systemic collapse. We have this crystal clear picture of the crisis, but absolutely no roadmap for how public utilities and services are actually adapting to this bizarre new reality.
So I want to wrap up this explainer by leaving you with one final, pretty heavy thought. If our infrastructure is already melting, how vulnerable are the systems we rely on every single day? Just pause and really think about that. If the roads and the traffic lights, the most visible, heavy-duty, basic parts of our daily commute, are fundamentally failing, what about the invisible systems? What about the power grids, the water pipes buried under the soil, the communication networks we literally rely on for everything? It really forces us to deeply consider the fragility of our daily environment. The solid ground we walk on and the systems we take for granted, well, they might not be as permanent as we thought. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep questioning the world around you, and I'll see you next time.